Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana
Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariraja Kacharya Sutara Sutta Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Nitya-Lidva Vishtam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariraja Kacharya Sutara Sutta Shri Śrimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shri Vāsadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Govinda Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi All glories to the Assembled Devotees All glories to the Assembled Devotees All glories to the Assembled Devotees All glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled, I Have Done My Part. Last week we read the emergency prayer. A sannyasi disciple read aloud a prayer he had written, petitioning the Supreme Lord for Prabhupada to live for 100 years. On hearing this, Srila Prabhupada opened his eyes wide and smiled. But again, he pointed out that he was not afraid of death. Wherever he was, he said he was in Vaikuntha, especially being in Vrindavan and being surrounded by the kirtan of his disciples was Vaikuntha. Tamal Krishna Goswami told Prabhupada that he had offered a prayer in the temple that morning while standing before Krishna and Balaram. Krishna had done so many miracles, he said, so it would not be very amazing if he kept Prabhupada alive. And Balaram, who was supporting all creation, would not be weakened if he gave Srila Prabhupada a little strength. In this way, Tamal Krishna said, we may all pray to Krishna Balaram to save you. We are not very important, but still they may hear. No, Prabhupada said, you are all pure devotees with no other motives. Srila Prabhupada regarded the petitions of his disciples as expressions of sincere affection, not at all improper spiritually. But he pointed out that it was ultimately up to Krishna. He had his plan. In any case, Prabhupada said that he would be all right. He told the story of a sage who blessed different persons through different ways. The sage blessed a prince to live a long life, since after death he would be punished for his sensual life. The sage also blessed an ascetic to die at once so as to be relieved of the sufferings of his austerities and receive his pious awards. But when asked to bless a pure devotee, the sage said that because the devotee had already obtained the lotus feet of Krishna, his condition would be the same whether he lived or died. Prabhupada knew even better than his disciples that there was much he could do if he remained in the world, but he simply wanted to see what Krishna desired. He saw strong evidence, however, that his life was about to end, at least according to the condition of his physical body. And this in itself indicated that Krishna's desire was that he soon leave this world. The GBC men met and decided that aside from Prabhupada's will, which would secure the ISKCON properties like this one, who can imagine? The judge, in reading Prabhupada's will, interpreted that this temple and all temples were meant to be maintained by the GBC as the ultimate managing authority. She actually read it into the record in the courtroom. Prabhupada's will saved us. Amazing. And aside from making all the bank accounts within ISKCON secure, there were also a few questions that they should put before Srila Prabhupada before it was too late. These questions, such as how future disciples would be initiated, would have to be answered. Otherwise, they would become a source of speculation and havoc after Srila Prabhupada's departure. A select committee from the GBC came before Srila Prabhupada, and as he sat up in bed in the main room downstairs, Hansarūpa Das Goswami was to be the spokesman. But he felt shy and uneasy. To come directly before Srila Prabhupada and ask about what should be done after his passing away might seem impertinent. But it was necessary. Srila Prabhupada himself had requested that the GBC come to Vrindavan to take care of exactly this kind of business. Besides, for a disciple to feel foolish and awkward before Srila Prabhupada was normal. And certainly the mission of Srila Prabhupada's disciples continuing his movement was so grave that its importance transcended the awkwardness of the moment. Nevertheless, Srila Prabhupada was Srila Prabhupada. And even though apparently invalid, he was as awesome as ever. If he were displeased with the questions, then it would be frightening. Srila Prabhupada said, Hansarūpa, we were all asked by the rest of the GBC to come to ask some questions. These are the members of the original GBC as you first made it out. Our first question is about the GBC members. We want to know how long should they remain in office. Srila Prabhupada spoke slowly and deeply. They should remain for good. Selected men are chosen so that they cannot be changed. Rather, if some competent men are found, they should be added. Srila Prabhupada took the opportunity to recommend that Vasudeva become a GBC member representing Fiji. Add him, said Prabhupada, but the GBC is not to be changed. Hansarūpa asked what to do if a GBC member gave up his post, and Prabhupada said that the GBC body should elect another man. Our next question, Hansarūpa proceeded, concerns initiation in the future, particularly at the time when you are no longer with us. We want to know how a first and second initiation should be conducted. Yes, said Prabhupada, I shall recommend some of you. After this is settled up, I shall recommend some of you to act as officiating acharya. This is where the confusion comes in, because the term in Sanskrit for officiating acharya is ritvik. Tamal Krishna interjected, is that called ritvik acharya? Yes, Prabhupada said, ritvik. Then what is the relationship of that person who gives the initiation, asked Hansarūpa. He is guru, said Prabhupada. But he does it on your behalf, said Hansarūpa. Yes, that is formality. Because in my presence, one should not become guru. So on my behalf, on my order, Amara Agyaya Guru, he is actually guru, but on my order. So they may also be considered your disciples, said Hansarūpa, referring to those persons initiated on Prabhupada's behalf by the Ritvik Acharya. They are their disciples, said Prabhupada. Now he was speaking of initiations after his passing away. They are the disciples of the one who is initiating, and they are my grand disciples. When I order you to become guru, you become regular guru, that's all. And they become the disciples of my disciple. The GBC members present were satisfied that Srila Prabhupada's reply to the intricate inquiry was clear and conclusive. Later he would select some of you, and whoever he selected would become an initiating guru. What he had already described many times throughout his Bhaktivedanta purports was now being implemented. His disciples would become gurus and accept disciples of their own. Hansarūpa next asked about the BBT. At present, he said, no translated works are to be published without your seeing and approving them. So the question is there any system for publishing works in the future, works that you may not see? That we have to examine expertly, Prabhupada replied. He accepted the principle that future works could be translated from Sanskrit, but he cautioned, but amongst my disciples, I don't think there are many who can translate properly. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, Kirtanananda Swami, we think that you cannot leave us very soon. I don't want to, said Prabhupada, but I am obliged. What can I do? If you don't want, then Krishna won't want, said Kirtanananda. Srila Prabhupada went on to describe the special qualifications for translating Sanskrit Vaishnava literature. It would take a realized soul, he said. Otherwise, simply by imitating A, B, C, D, it will not help. My purports are liked by people because it is presented as practical experience. It cannot be done unless one is realized. It is not a matter of scholarship, added Bhagavan. Lord Chaitanya says, said Srila Prabhupada, Amara Agyaya Guru. One who can understand the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can become Guru. One who understands his Guru's orders in Parampara, he can become Guru. And therefore I shall select some of you. By repeating himself, Prabhupada emphasized this point. He would select who would be Guru, and he also repeated his other point. So there's no question of changing GBC. Rather, one who is competent, he can be selected to add by the vote of GBC. Of course, if someone falls away, Tamal Krishna proposed, just like in the past GBC men have fallen down, they should be replaced at Prabhupada. They must be all ideal Acharya. In the beginning, we have done for working, but now we should be very cautious. Anyone who is deviating, he can be replaced. There are few questions answered. The GBC men sat silently before Srila Prabhupada, awaiting any further instructions, but anxious not to tire him with their presence. So Srila Prabhupada said to Tamal Krishna, there is a chanting party ready to do some kirtan. Maybe they can come in. And we'll leave for the next week, the beginning of the top of page 403. You got that, Noah? 403. Are you going to be here next week? When do you guys go to India? October 6th? Oh, he leaves Monday. Who are you leaving with? Oh, very good. It's always good to have association. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd Canto, 15th Chapter, Text 26. It's another one of those Chintamani prayer shlokas. Tad Vishvagurabhati Kritam Bhuvanayaka Vandyam. Tad Vishvagurabhati Kritam Bhuvanayaka Vandyam. Devyang Vichitra Vibhudagraya Vimana Sochi. Devyang Vichitra Vibhudagraya Vimana Sochi. Apu Parang Mudama Puravam Upete Yoga. Maya Balena Munayas Tarato Vikuntam. Maya Balena Munayas Tarato Vikuntam. Please chant. Tad Vishvagurabhati Kritam Bhuvanayaka Vandyam. Vidugaga Vimana Sochi. Apu Parang Mudama Purvam Upete Yoga. Maya Balena Muniya Tarato Vikuntam. Tad Vishvagurabhati Kritam Bhuvanayaka Vandyam. Devyang Vichita Vibhudagraya Vimana Sochi. Apu Paramudama Purvam Apete Yoga. Maya Balena Munaya Tarato Vikuntam. Tad Vishvagurabhati Kritam Bhuvanayaka Vandyam. Devyang Vichitra Buddhagagya Priyavana Socha Apu Paramudama Ramapete Yoga Maya Balena Muniya Tarato Vikuntam. Tad Vishvagoa Vidyakritam Bhuvanayaka Vandyam Divyang Vichitra Vuvadagra Vimana Sochi Apu Parang Mudamapurvamapeta Yoga Maya Balena Muniya Tarato Vikuntam. Anyone else? Tad Vishvagoa Vidyakritam Bhuvanayaka Vandyam Devyang Vichitra Vivadagra Vimana Sochi Apu Parang Mudamapurvamapeta Yoga Maya Balena Muniya Tarato Vikuntam. Tat, then, Vishvaguru, by the teacher of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Adikritam, predominated, Bhuvana, of the planets, Eka, alone, Vandyam, worthy to be worshipped, Devyam, spiritual, Vichitra, highly decorated, Vibhuddha Agriya, of the devotees, who are the best of the learned, Vimana, of the airplanes, Sochi, illuminated, Apu, attained, Param, the highest, Mudam, happiness, Apurvam, unprecedented, Upetya, having attained, Yogamaya, by spiritual potency, Balena, by the influence, Munaya, the sages, Tat, Vaikunta, Ato, that, Vikuntam, Vishnu. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thus the great sages Sanaka, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara, upon reaching the above-mentioned Vaikuntha in the spiritual world, by dint of their mystic yoga performance, perceived unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes, piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha, and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please repeat. Thus the great sages, Sanaka, Sanatan, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara, upon reaching the above-mentioned Vaikuntha in the spiritual world, by dint of their mystic yoga performance, perceived unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes, piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha, and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second. He is above everyone. No one is equal to him, nor is anyone greater than him. Therefore, he is described here as Vishvaguru. He is the prime living entity of the entire material and spiritual creation, and is Bhuvanayaka Vandyam, the only worshipable personality in the three worlds. The airplanes in the spiritual sky are self-illuminated and are piloted by great devotees of the Lord. In other words, in the Vaikuntha planets, there is no scarcity of the things which are available in the material world. They are available, but they are more valuable because they are spiritual and therefore eternal and blissful. The sages felt an unprecedented happiness because Vaikuntha was not predominated by an ordinary man. The Vaikuntha planets are predominated by expansions of Krishna, who are differently named as Madhusudan, Madhava, Narayan, Pradumna, etc. These transcendental planets are worshipable because the personality of Godhead personally rules them. It is said here that the sages reached the transcendental spiritual sky by dint of their mystic power. That is the perfection of the yoga system. The breathing exercises and disciplines to keep health in proper order are not the ultimate goal of yoga perfection. The yoga system is generally understood as Ashtanga yoga or Siddhi, eightfold perfection in yoga. By dint of perfection in yoga, one can become lighter than the lightest and heavier than the heaviest. One can go wherever he likes and can achieve opulence as he likes. There are 8 such perfections. The rishis, the 4 Kumaris, reached Vaikuntha by becoming lighter than the lightest and thus passing over the space of the material world. Modern mechanical space vehicles are unsuccessful because they cannot go to the highest region of this material creation, and they certainly cannot enter the spiritual sky. But by perfection of the yoga system, one not only can travel through material space, but can surpass material space and enter the spiritual sky. We learn this fact also from an incident concerning Durvasa Muni and Maharaj Ambarish. It is understood that in 1 year, Durvasa Muni traveled everywhere and went into the spiritual sky to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan. By present standards, scientists calculate that if one could travel at the speed of light, it would take 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of this material world. But the yoga system can carry one without limitation or difficulty. The word Yogamaya is used in this verse, Yogamaya Balena Vikuntam. The transcendental happiness exhibited in the spiritual world and all other spiritual manifestations there are made possible by the influence of Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timiranda Shah Garanjana Shlakaya Chakshura Taminatas Meshi Mukam Karoti Pachalam Pangu Mankante Yap Kripatam Hamade Shigurum Translation again. Thus the great sages Sanaka, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumaran, upon reaching the above-mentioned Vaikuntha in the spiritual world by dint of their mystic yoga performance, perceived unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes, piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha, and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How's the volume, Gopal? Complaining it's too loud? Okay. In the material world, every endeavor is covered to some degree by fault. Despite our best intentions. So Prabhupada is also paraphrasing that in the Lilamrita, that all of the disciples are pure devotees, but at the same time, if someone falls down, they should be replaced. So this purity is not a necessarily permanent, what can you say, quality. You know, just like Prabhupada uses the analogy of rain falling from the sky is pure. Once it touches the ground, it becomes muddy. Right? So this is an axiomatic truth. We understand that. It's very clear. But at the same time, we can appreciate that although we're hopefully trying our best to remain fixed in Krishna consciousness, the tendency is because we are tatashta shakti, we're marginal potency. Marginal means in between. Therefore, one can go either way. So this is our sanchalam, our flickering nature. So therefore, we are implored by the Shastras to remain steady. And this is considered to be one of the highest achievements one can achieve as a new devotee. In that sense, we are all new devotees, because we are trying. Prabhupada also used that. Whenever anyone would say trying, he would say, trying means doing. So you're trying to be pure, so be pure. Avoid everything. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. Right? Chant your rounds. This is the test whether one is sincere. You know, it is a common, we see this on a regular basis, that one needs to maintain his taste in Krishna consciousness. Raso bhagam raso pyasya param dristva-nivartate. If he's not developing this higher taste, then his impure, conditioned past will come and infect his consciousness again. Just like if you, now we're exiting a very interesting period of time, this COVID. And people have tried every possible way to avoid it. But yet we see that even after this and that vaccination and this booster, still people are reinfected. So this is the nature of the material world. Is that regardless of one's attempts, that if he is not cautious, and he again puts himself in a contaminated environment, then he will undoubtedly be reinfected by his conditioned consciousness. That conditioned consciousness is always there, as long as we are in this material body, up until the point where one has completely renounced every aspect. And so that's why sannyas is given such high respect and regard. When Lord Chaitanya took sannyas specifically in order to get this level of respect, because it was due to familiarity that he understood that people would simply see him as Nimai, the village boy, and they wouldn't take anything he said seriously. So we have, we can't wait for all of our different devotees to come back who are expert at arranging the sound system, especially Natabar, who makes it so, seems so easy. So so we just have, with regards to this principle of renunciation, this is not something that we can ignore. In brahmachari life, one is practicing. In grihastha life, it becomes more evident how one has to control the senses, much more evident. So that's why it has to be accepted very carefully. He accepts a dangerous assignment. He understands that this is for the good of the whatever, the mission. I have to accept this assignment. But there's danger involved. One may not come out alive. So the grihastha ashram is a little bit like that. You know, you go in and you think everything is nice, but at the same time, just like the age of Kali, any little discrepancy can turn into a major issue without very much endeavor whatsoever. So one has to be especially cautious. It should not be done lightly. One has to be extremely determined. If he is not determined in brahmachari life, how can he be determined in grihastha life? If he's not accustomed to rising early, chanting his rounds, performing his duties, then grihastha life is not for him. Because one has to be extremely responsible. And if he's just responsible at the expense of his spiritual life, then he's made a great miscalculation. So we have to be, in every ashram, one has to be especially careful, just like sannyas. Obviously, in sannyas, you have the greatest facility to become Krishna conscious. Your only duty is to preach. Achar and prachar. Your only duty. You don't have to take care of anything else. Temple commanders are not going to come up to you and say, Prabhu, I need you to clean the bathrooms. No. You're free. Free to preach. But if you do not take it seriously, if you just go around, from temple to temple, just looking for some comfortable situation, some respect, some facility, then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was very heavy about this. He would chastise. There was one famous paper, but in order to read this paper, one has to be very much relaxed in his consciousness and willing to accept the instructions of our Param Guru. It says, who should live in the Mat? That's the title, you can Google it. Who should live in the Mat? Mat means ashram, temple. And he would criticize that the sannyasis, they're taking sannyas. Why? So they don't have to clean the bathrooms. That they can just sit around and the brahmacharis serve them. That they can use the temple facility. He specifically mentioned the temple cars, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had very nice facility, very nice cars. To go to the doctor in the hospital to take care of their bodies. So he would say, we don't want these type of sannyasis. So we have to understand what is the mood of the spiritual master. Like we're reading in Lilamrita, what is Prabhupada's mood? How to preserve that which he struggled so hard to bring about. And then we have to take that mood very seriously. It is not just some casual thing that we come to the temple and we just use it for some escape. Because yes, that is there. Get free from the pressure of the material world, the stress. The temple is Vaikuntha, no anxiety. But this freedom from anxiety is meant to elevate you to the point of appreciating how to maintain this mercy that I've been given. I've been given this gift. Now, how do I maintain it? Do I just throw it in the corner and let it accumulate dust? Or even worse? This is such a valuable thing. It should be every day meditated. How can I serve my spiritual master? In what capacity? It's not just automatic. I get up and I go to the temple and then I go and I eat breakfast and I go to class. Like that. That's there. Routine is there. But behind that routine has to be purpose. Otherwise, one's intelligence becomes what? Many-branched. Many-branched. Just going like this. Not focused. Focused on the mission of the spiritual master. So everyone has a duty. Disciple has a duty to follow you other spiritual master. Otherwise, what is the point to take initiation? Just to get a new name? To rubber stamp? Boom. So this is not spiritual life. Spiritual life means taking 100% the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. These are Prabhupada's words. As one's life and soul. So one has to make whatever arrangement is required in order to accomplish that. I was reading in Bhagavad Gita, but of course because it's Kali Yuga, the memory becomes a little slack. But the fact is that there is one can remember that this verse in the Gita, in the 11th chapter, everyone knows this verse. It's your favorite verse. Bhaktya tvananyaya shaktya aham evam vidorjana gyatum drastum tadvena parveshtum cha parantapa. I like that. Parantapa. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as and be seen correctly. This is your understanding. So, I mean, what's not clear about that? But we think, okay, it's a gradual process. I'm just a brahmachari now. I'm just a new grahastha. I'm just a new sannyasi. I'm working out. But that's not. When one is given a position, just like when in any situation, when you're in your employment and you're hired for a particular role, you can't say, well, it's going to take me a year or so to get up to speed, and there's a learning curve, and I don't know all these people. And no, expected to immediately be ready, day one, to do. You can't tell the employer, no, it'll be a while. You'll just have to accept whatever I can give. No. That's unacceptable. One is, but somehow or other that we take it, and we have to be very careful, we take it lightly. We don't have to say it cheaply. Everyone who comes to Krishna consciousness is sincere, no doubt. But once coming, sometimes we become complacent, and this is not allowed. That's not allowed. To become complacent is not allowed. There was another, and an interesting correlation that in 11th canto, it has a similar, and everyone knows 11th canto is Uddhava Gita. And it says, Bhaktyaham ekaya graya shraddayatma priyaksatam bhakti punati man nishta swapakan api sambhavat. Only by practicing unalloyed devotional service with full faith in me can one obtain me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am not dear to devotees who take as the only goal of their loving service. Devotional service, even the dog eaters can purify themselves from the contamination of their low birth. And Uddhava Gita is considered the most intimate aspect, in one sense, of the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. We understand that there's Krishna's pastimes there. No. But these pastimes are for realized souls. But Uddhava Gita is very practical, personal instruction. And I mean, anyone can benefit from hearing Uddhava Gita on a daily basis, if possible. It's one of those things that reinforces what might be not completely internalized with regards to this aspect of unalloyed devotional service. But that's the definition. What's that verse? Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anya vilasita sunyam jnana kama adinadatam anukulyena krishnana shivanam bhakti uttam. It is said to be, this is the definition of devotional service. But we kind of make exceptions here and there. We have to be careful making those exceptions. Under what circumstances are we making exceptions? Why am I not fully surrendered? I'm living in the temple. Why? I mean, I'm here. Temple commander can ask me to do anything he wants. But wait. Maybe not. Maybe I can't do it today. Maybe I have something else to do in my mind that I think is more important than serving. Because after all, this is Krishna's house. We're all servants. There's no question if someone says that you're living here and the service is on one hand voluntary, but at the same time it's voluntary because you're encouraged to use your realization to, how can you say, help you to appreciate the connection between the service and my presence and my relationship with Krishna. Because everything has an effect. One nice devotee, Alankar, I know him from Henry Street, but he was also there on 2nd Avenue. And he would, I would come to the temple regularly. I like coming to the temple. What's not to like? Kirtan, the devotees, prasadam. So I was a regular visitor. I would do service. Whenever I could, I would go into the pot room, wash pots, whatever they needed to be done, I would do. But, he could see, and others could see that I wasn't getting to the point of surrender. Right? I was reading Bhagavad Gita. I was really appreciating everything about the philosophy. It had answered all of my questions. And to me, now this was the topmost. There was nothing superior to Krishna consciousness. But I was still enjoying material life. I had so many whatever activities that I was thinking that I was managing. Each chant 6 times. Doing all these side activities. And so Alankar very nicely, maybe this was his analogy or where he got, but he said, it seems you've been coming quite, regularly. And, Krishna is inviting you to come and stay, to join this intimate group and to advance spiritually. You're not going to make you get to a certain level and then you're on a plateau, so to speak, until you surrender. And anyone who's gone through that process realizes that, you're up to a certain point, and then when you move into temple and you begin to engage full-time in devotional service, realization crystallizes. It becomes internalized. So he was saying, well, it seems that Krishna is inviting you to come, just like if I was inviting you to my house, and I invite you once, I invite you twice, I invite you thrice, but you don't come. At a certain point, I'm going to stop inviting you. What's the point? So that, had an effect. I thought, oh, yes. I'm not treating Krishna like a person. That was just, it was there, but it wasn't fully appreciated. That Radha Govinda were there in the temple, and as a neophyte, your realization is somewhat stunned. But so, when he said that, I felt like an arrow in my heart. That yes, I'm not, it's not a very nice situation. I'm simply taking from Krishna what I like, and I'm ignoring the point of surrender. And he was very kind to engage a person like me, just a kid from in very nice service in Prabhupada's quarters and painting and repairing. And I realized that honor doesn't come without obligation. I got to be directly in contact with Prabhupada's person, that paraphernalia that's in that museum. Cleaning Prabhupada's room, fixing his things like that. So, I took it to heart and I made arrangements to get out of material life. And, for whatever reason, it was a little harder than I thought to cut off all these attachments. But by the endeavor, I could feel Krishna assisting me in every respect. And so that has to be there at some point. Right, so even some people who have come into the temple, not people, they're devotees, have yet to reach that point of full surrender. Sometimes because it's a little too easy now, it's a little too comfortable. It's just like going from one Airbnb to another Airbnb. You're comfortable in your mother's house, you're comfortable in the temple, it's a little comfortable. Nice, you know, we have hot water here, we have beds. We didn't have those things in Henry Street, where I joined. It was austere. You really had to think every day that I'm okay with this facility, sleeping on the floor, taking cold showers, going out on Sankirtan. It's not that you could say, well, hey, Prabhu, I'm going to go back now. I'm going to head. You're out on Sankirtan, you're with the Sankirtan, whoever the senior man is, and when you're done, they tell you when you're done. 5 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours. There was none of this independence. Well, I think I'm going to go back to the temple now. I want to study a little bit. No. It was complete 100%. You were surrendered. You really understood what the term meant. If you know, at all, your intelligence was commensurate with that realization, then you made advancement. You know, you didn't try to escape it. You didn't try to arrange your own schedule. You know, it's very important to try to see how things progress. If I could progress independently in Krishna consciousness, then what's the point of being in the temple? You know, we see that very few people are able to do it independently. There are some, no doubt. But to become self-realized is not an easy thing. And we're reading that Prabhupada said that one has to be realized. If he wants to at all be useful at some point to the spiritual master, to carry on this mission at that level, to become guru, to take responsibility for others. You know, so this is, so we have an opportunity to examine these things. Prabhupada's life is there, before and after, when he was a grihastha, when he was growing up, when he was trying to form League of Devotees, print back to Godhead. All these struggles were there. But he never gave up. He never gave up. He didn't think, I'm just going to go back to Calcutta. I have my nice house there. I don't have to do anything. All my kids are there. You know, I don't have to. Why do I have to do this? No. This is the dedication and determination. In the future, I mean, already there's the Prabhupada's Leelamrita. This is just such a small aspect, you know, that in the future there'll be additional works done of those, because appreciating this movement, it's not a material thing. We just take it as just some ashram or something. It's not like that. You know, we just don't, we're a little bit too close to the present situation to appreciate historically what impact this movement will have in 50 years down the road, 100 years down the road, 1,000 years down the road. No. But we can see from other so-called, you know, religious movements. And there's no parallel. There's no comparison. If we're honest, if anyone's honest, not everybody's honest in this regard. So we should think that this is a very special opportunity, and if we have that consciousness, then we'll, like that gem, we'll treat it differently than just throwing it in the corner and letting it sit there, you know, without carefully caring for it on a regular daily basis. You know, we have that analogy of the bhakti lata. You know, but we don't see that bhakti lata in front of us. We don't visualize it. If we visualized it, we might take more care. That every time I do something, that creeper withers a bit, or a leaf falls off, or something worse. You know, so we have to be very careful. We have to understand internally what is my situation at any particular time. Am I doing the right thing with regards to my service, my relationship, my commitment? This is, all has to be there. Everybody, the karmis are doing this all the time. They have to act in a certain way. They have to behave in a certain way. They have to present things in a certain way. So it's not that we become devotees and we all of a sudden we forget all these points of behavior. Rather, we adopt an even higher standard. That's why probably, sometimes we may say, not because, what is that when there was that this morning's Prabhupada saying, one dresses for others' taste. He dresses for others' taste. Did you read this morning's Prabhupada passage? So there's in the residence. So what does Prabhupada say today? Wow, there's so much. Did it go? I don't even see it. Anyway, it was there. Yeah, I thought I posted it. Maybe I missed it. Did you see it? Dress has to be accepted according to the taste of others, and foodstuffs are to be accepted according to the eater's taste. So this is the point, that, when we're here, we should be dressing for Prabhupada's pleasure, to make a presentation. Just like you can't have a policeman who's supposed to be in uniform wearing some mismatched outfit. First of all, that uniform is his symbol of authority as much as the badge or anything else. So at most he has to have certain things, or at least he has to have certain aspects of that. And so when we go out, we have to make sure that we're properly dressed, to represent Srila Prabhupada. Not that we go out dressing any way we like. So this is part of that consciousness. Because there's the tendencies that we think, well, I'm independent, I like to dress like this. But that's not, if we're living in an ashram, we don't maintain that independent mindset with regards to our presentation of Krishna consciousness. No, we'll have to be all on the same page. It's a very important concept. We dress, everybody said you dress for effect. So what is the effect? I go out there, and I'm just wearing a cut-off t-shirt or a tank top or something that says hustler on it, No, it should say Brooklyn Bhakti, right? No, it should say Brooklyn Bhakti. But these are all minor points, but at the same time, they're emblematic of our Krishna consciousness. So don't neglect even these small things, because it will reflect on your consciousness. And hopefully we'll get this static issue fixed up for the next person. Did we ever discover what the cause of the static was? Sometimes it's a loose connection. Oh, the gain was too high. Well, the gain is this, but whatever that's jacked into, that also has gain. Every input has a gain level, and obviously too much gain will result in static if they're not balanced. Volume and gain, the two go hand in hand, like halva and ghee and sugar. Got to be the right, otherwise it's something else. Any other questions? Yes, we have first is Suma.
Prabhuji, I want to ask something from the purport. So we are seeing here. It's clear?
Yeah, you can, but just
So,
Hold it a little bit down like that, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we see it
Away from your mouth, yeah. Yeah. This is, Krishna can do anything. One can be able to, but that perfection is used here. And that one can actually go, if he wants, if he so desires, up to that level, to Vaikuntha. The Vaikuntha planets are not Goloka. In the Paravyom, there are unlimited planets. So they were able to go, as was Durvasa Muni, as was Arjuna. So all these, this is not ordinary. And then we appreciate that ultimately this is past. Demonstrate. So we read and we understand by Yoga Maya for Krishna to enjoy his pastimes, not by some accident that these things are happening, by some coincidence. No, everything, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Lord. But they're documented for specific examples. So it's, but if you want to go up to Vaikuntha, then you, first of all, in this age it's not possible to reach perfection in mystic yoga. It took 60,000 years. 60,000 years in Satya Yuga. That's 2/3 of your lifetime. You live to be 100,000 years, but for perfection in the Ashtanga Yoga system, it took 60,000 years. So that's described here in Bhagavatam. So nobody has 60,000 years. And then we read in the purport about the scientists. They're trying to get around the fact that if you want to go to the nearest so-called habitable planet, with similar arrangements, solar system, etc., takes 40,000 light years of travel. It's not 1,000 years, it's 40,000 light years. These are inconceivable to the materialists. It means they can never go there. So the most they can hope is they're trying to go, what are they trying to do now? They're trying to go to Mars. And they'll waste so much money endeavoring in this regard. And people will be cheated. Yeah, it's nice to think, that we'll go by some mechanical means. But practically speaking, you can only go there and you cannot stay. They will be completely frustrated trying to create some habitat. But anyway, this is their foolish endeavor. They don't appreciate that with such a short life, but with all the facility in this short life to become self-realized, to go back home, back to Godhead. It's amazing even that those persons of faith will make such an endeavor or waste time in this regard, simply in the name of what? Science? but they'll neglect the science of self-realization for the foolish pursuit of establishing Mars or the moon. So, Nick, what you wanted? Bhakta Aiden.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I would like to be your analogy of someone. Because they knew,
I mean, to a certain extent, any devotees who are, if you have a realization that can assist them in their own, and just like someone is good at math, he can tutor someone who's not good at math. And in this way, he is assisting him in that specific area. We all have qualities that can be properly utilized in the service of Krishna, helping ourselves and helping others. It works complementary. It's not exclusive. By helping someone, I'm also helping myself. That to put into practice what I'm endeavoring to do on a regular basis also reinforces my determination. You can't tell somebody to do something that you're not doing yourself. What is that famous statement? Brought their late the sun. And sannyasis give blessings. They just bring whoever and they just give me a blessing. Because the spiritual sannyasis, spiritual personality, they have some potency. And people respect that and they want a blessing. But you don't ask for mundane things. You ask for something which is not available anyplace else. Pure love of God. Like Prabhupada's father would ask all the sadhus, please make my son a devotee of Radharani. That's what you ask. But this lady, she brought her son to Sridhar Maharaj and said, please tell my son to stop eating sweets. The Maharaj is, he said, come back tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. So the lady came back the next day. And she said, now can you tell my son to stop eating sweets? So Sridhar Maharaj told the boy, stop eating sweets. And the lady said, why couldn't you tell him that yesterday? He said, because yesterday I was eating sweets, so I had to stop before I could tell him to stop. So this is, well, it's an internal realization. So you have to, and it's there in the material world. What do they say? Practice what you preach. You cannot be a hypocrite. So this is on the most basic level. You have to practice what you preach. So if I'm not going to Mangalarti, how can I tell you to come to Mangalarti? So this is just, if I'm not chanting my full rounds, how can I encourage you to chant your 16 rounds? If I'm negligent in any aspect of following, how can I encourage you to do so? First of all, there won't be any potency if you're not following. It's not simply by the dress. It's not like we're policemen and we put on a badge and then automatically by that authority there's a show of force. without respect. So what do they say in the material world? You cannot demand respect. You have to command respect. So and if one is not a follower of Srila Prabhupada, then he can't be a leader on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. So he has to be a follower. You cannot just be a follower in name only. It is not, sometimes we see that people just say, yes, I'm this or that, the other thing. But that doesn't mean anything if you're not following. If you're a policeman, but you're corrupt, crooked, then what is the purpose? What is the point? It's actually a great dishonor. So we have to just have, whatever analogy helps you to get through your spiritual day. Prabhupada has given so many instructions. Hansarūpa Maharaj compiled a book with one devotee, because when I was reading this, I was remembering Agraya. Remember Agraya? He helped Hansarūpa Maharaj translate the Niti Shastra. Chanakya Pandit. Every quote that Prabhupada ever used in Chanakya Pandit is in one book. It's a very nice book. There's probably not many left, but I'm sure you could find it online. So every quote that Prabhupada used, and Prabhupada openly said that he's just a moral person. But in many cases, this is what's required. Matrivat paradarishu, that one has to see every woman as mother. Anyone else's possessions is garbage on the street. One should take gold from a filthy place. A beautiful woman, even from a low family. So these things are there, the moral instruction. But we can relate to them. So that's the point. So if you can use them to assist someone to appreciate some aspect of the philosophy using that analogy or using those moral truisms, then it has benefit. So every tool can be used if used by the proper journeyman, mechanic. Journeyman is a neophyte, you can say. He's just learning. The mechanic is the expert. So we have to gradually practice, develop our skills and these skills are first our internal skills of discipline, determination, fortitude. All these things are there. They help one another. If one has a weak immune system and he gets sick, immediately he gets knocked down. Can't get out of bed. Telling I can't go to Mangalarti, I can't do my sharas, I can't do this. So the analogy is that if one has developed his spiritual immune system, then when these challenges come, he can just brush them off. They're not going to affect him. He's not going to be pulled away from his duty to the spiritual master in Krishna. Just a flickering distraction, immediately dismissed. Immediately dismissed. There's so many things which are easy to dismiss. You just have to learn to accommodate whatever larger and larger challenges as minor issues. But if you feel small in the face of them because you're weak, then they'll overwhelm you. That's that Tatashta principle. You'll be overwhelmed. You can't handle it. People come to you all the time and say, "Boy, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with this. Getting up early, chanting 16 hours, boy, I can't do it." So, but why? The higher taste is not there. The higher taste doesn't mean I'm, experiencing, this raga of intimacy with Krishna necessarily. But at least I should have